What is going on, everybody? It's Skills here on the gaming channel, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about my two favorite skill damage builds. Yes, both of these builds work really good, and one is a high-end gold build and then one is a hardwire build. Now you might have seen these on my main channel, but I decided to make a video of both of them so that way you guys can decide which one you guys like better. In my opinion, I think they both work great. I do like the hardwire for the consistent skills, but when you have the all gold build with some pretty good skill haste and some pretty good damage, you tend to get your skills back with skilled. But at the end of the day, it's really a personal preference, and I think they both work amazing. So in this video, you're going to see both builds, how I break them down, and how you guys should use them. I'm using the same skill for both. I'm using a mortar and seekers. So here it is. The first build we'll get into is the gold build, and then the second build we'll get in is the hardwire build. Now I am running the demolitionist class with this build. For the weapons, I'm running surge, which is a named weapon that gives me perfect spark. Headshots grant 25% skill damage for 8 seconds. So every time I get a headshot for those 8 seconds, my skills will do 25% more damage. So if the skill is down, I start getting some headshots, perfect spike will proc. Now for my secondary, I run the send off, and this I can just have it holstered because it has perfectly rooted. While equipped and in cover, all skill damages and healing is increased by 30% for 15 seconds. Now the buff is lost when you exit cover, and this can occur once every 60 seconds. Now perfectly rooted, it does say while equipped. So if you guys remember, this is a passive talent. So as long as it's all my equipped means all my gear, I am running this. So I just leave this holstered the whole time and it works. Let's get into the build. So for the mask, I'm running a China Light mask. I'm running a 3-piece. So I get that 15% explosive damage with the 1-piece right here. I have skill tier. For the attributes, I have hazard protection, skill damage. I would like to have skill haste instead of hazard protection. And then for the mod, I'm running skill haste on there. So this is the 1-piece I would like to change. So I would love to get rid of that hazard protection. For the chest, I am running my first piece of Hana Yu. I do have a 2-piece. So the first piece is going to give me 10% skill haste. I have the +1 skill tier. I have 11% skill haste, 9% skill damage, and then I have an offensive mod here. I would like this to be a yellow mod, and that would be better. Now I had to use my roll on the talent, so I rolled skilled because I love skilled. Skilled's great. Skill kills have a 25% chance to reset skills, and if you can have your skills more often, that means you can put out more DPS. You just keep throwing your skills over and over and over, and with having something like the 2 skills I'm running, it's really going to work, and you'll see the skills in just a second. But that is one change. The headshot mod, I would like to have be a skill mod instead. For the holster, we are running our second piece of Hana Yu, and that's going to give us that 10% skill damage. We do have the 1 skill tier, and then we have 10% skill damage and 9.6% skill haste. So you're going to get the trend right here. A lot of skill damage, a lot of skill haste. We want our skills to come back. Now for the knee pads, this is our second piece of China Light. This is going to give us that 10% skill haste. We have the 1 skill tier, then again, skill haste and skill damage. That's what you want to go with this build because we want to put out a lot of damage and we want our skills to come back quicker. Now, if we get into the gloves are going to be our first piece of Wyvern wear, and that's because we get that 10% skill damage. That's a great piece to put on any skill build. That 10% skill damage with 1 piece. It's hard to not run this with any type of skill build you're running. We have that 1 skill tier, then we have 10% skill damage and 12% skill haste. A god roll set of piece of gloves. This is my piece right here. This is the 1 god roll piece I have on this build. If we get into the backpack, I am running my 3rd piece of China Light. Now, a lot of you guys might say, why don't you run the exotic backpack? But I really like having this talent called Shock and All. Applying the status effect to an enemy increases the total skill damage and repair. And since I'm using the mortars, they do cause the enemy to bleed because a lot of times I don't fully kill them because in heroics, they have a lot of health, right? So I cause that status effect. So then I'm gaining that skill damage for 20% for 20 seconds. Now, I do have 1 core attribute of skill tier, so we want all 6 to have skill tier. Then we have status effects on here. Now, I would like to have that change for skill haste. Then I would like to have skill damage, a better roll. We do have the utility mod on here, so we put skill haste on here. So ideally, this is exactly what I want. Just better rolls, except the status effects, I want skill haste. Now, if you don't want to run shock and all, you can run the exotic backpack. So for the skills, I am running the artillery turret. So this is the mortar turret. And then look, it says it does apply a bleed status to the effect if you don't kill the enemy, right? So if you hit them with it, it will apply that bleed. So that's a status effect. That's why shotgun all works really good. Now, it does have a 10 seconds cooldown, which is really good because we have all that skill haste. The damage on it is almost 3 million, a little bit over 3 million. The blast radius is 6.8 meters. It has 10 shots, and we are at tier 6, so we get the benefit of running that. Now, this is amazing for crowd control, for destroying enemies, for putting a lot of damage on enemies, and you can spam this pretty good. And with only having a 10-second cooldown after your last charge, it's amazing. Now, the way I have this modded is I do have a damage mod on there, and then I have a mortar mod. So you're going to get the damage of 2.9%, which isn't maxed. I definitely want to fix that. And then we do have a skill haste on there, and then we do have one extra shot on there. So those are the 3 that I usually run when I run this. Now, if we get into my second skill, so you already know I like running the artillery turret. I like running the cluster seeker mines. Now, these cluster seeker mines are going to do 2.5 million damage on him, and that's because I'm not fully maxed out with this build. Once you get everything maxed out, you should be around the 3 million range with your clusters. Now, I personally run skill haste mods on here. If you want to have more damage, you can run the damage mods on here. I feel that just having them come back a little bit quicker, even though it's only 2 to 3 seconds, it's a big difference, especially when you're fighting targets and you need them to come back. So having them around 26.2 seconds isn't too bad, and I have skills. Now, if you want, you can run 2 damage mods, and then you can run 1 extra cluster mine, so the +1. But I personally like running the skill haste. That's up to you, and those numbers will change depending if you run damage or skill haste. But yeah, this is the build right here. This is the build I love running. And the great thing about this build is you can run it solo or you can run it in a group. I feel that most skill builds do excel in a group because some of the fire isn't focused on you, right? They can't focus your turrets. But overall, I feel that this is a great way to run this build. And I'm becoming a big fan of the turret, right? The artillery turret. I'm really having a lot of fun with this. And the more I play with it, the better I get and the easier it is to aim with this. So I can just spam these over and over and take those big chunks of health and armor from those enemies. So this is the second skill build right here. I'll have a full breakdown of it, and you'll see this one works really great, and it's also another great build to run. So if you guys are looking at another option for skill builds and you want to use something that isn't gold build, you can run this one. The thing about the hardwire build, I think it's a little easier to put together since you can almost always have god roll pieces because there's only one attribute you need to roll on the 4 pieces. So you can always roll that skill damage and you'll always have god roll pieces. But let's get into the build. So the way I have this hardwire build set up is spec to make sure that I can get my seekers back, and I still want them to hit really hard, right? So we have a 4-piece hardwire, and then we have 2 pieces of gold. And we'll show you exactly how I run this build. Before we do, let's dive into the weapons though. So the weapons, we'll do a quick overview. I'm running the Surge rifle. It's the LVOA named rifle, and this comes with perfect spike, so headshots grant 25% skill damage for 8 seconds. And as long as I'm getting those headshots, I'm not worried about the damage it's doing. I'm just worried about getting those headshots, so that way I can get the additional 25% skill damage on my seekers or the mortars that you guys saw in the previous clip. Now for my secondary, I like running the send-off, and the reason why I like running this is because it does have a holster talent perfectly rooted. While equipped or in cover, skill damage and healing is increased by 30% for 15 seconds. Now the buff is lost when exiting cover, but can occur once every 60 seconds. And that's what's really good about this, because this is a holster talent, so I can just leave this holstered and be using my Surge rifle. But that's enough for the weapons. Those are the main 2 weapons I'm using. Don't worry about how you mod them however you want. It's just those are the weapons you want. So we are running a 4-piece hardwire, and the reason why we pick a 4-piece is because the 2-piece gives us 15% skill haste, 3-piece gives us 15% skill damage that we want. The 4-piece feedback loop, this is the real reason why we want it. Whenever you use a skill, your other skill is automatically refreshed and increase the skill damage by 10% for 20 seconds. This can occur once per 20 seconds. So we're going to get an increase of skill damage for 10 seconds, and it's an automatic refresh on those seekers. And that's where you saw when I threw out those seekers and then I deploy my skill, my seekers are already back. And that's how that works. That's how feedback loop works. So it's actually a really good skill because you get that skill damage plus you get that instant charge back. Now, if you pair that with the right talents on your chest piece, you can always have it. And that's what we're gonna get into next, my chest piece. So the chest piece, I'm running a China Light chest piece. This gives me 15% explosive damage. I'm using seekers and mortars, so that's why this is important. Now we have skill tier 1 on here. We do have status effects, but I ideally would like to have skill haste. Then we have skill damage. Then I put a mod on there for skill haste. Now for the talent, we're running skilled. Skill kills have 25% chance to reset skills on cooldowns. And that's what you were seeing at the very beginning where I was getting those skills back consistently. Of course, feedback loop reset it once, but then after that, I wasn't using feedback loop. I was just throwing my seekers out. And if you noticed, every time I was getting a kill, that skill would proc and it was refreshing my skills. And that's what was really good about it. That's why it was those two hand in hand pair up really good. And that's why I say if you build it right, you can have enough damage to make sure that you have that damage to proc that skill. Now, if you don't want to run skills on a chest piece, you can run the hardwire chest piece. It has a really good talent on the chest piece that's going to increase the damage from 10% to 25% damage. But I personally would like to, I'll take that negative 15% damage and only take the 10% damage, but have skilled and have my skills come back and I can spam those seekers more and more. That's why I prefer running skilled over running the hardwire chest. But I'll let you guys pick that for yourself. Now let's get into the holster. The holster is our second piece of hardwire. We're gonna have skill tier here and skill damage. On the mask, you saw that we had skill tier and skill damage, the same thing. Same thing's gonna go for the knee pads. We have skill tier, skill damage. The reason why you want that skill damage is you want those seekers and those mortars to hit hard. Now for the gloves, this is where we're gonna go with the wyvern. The wyvern gives us a one piece 10% skill damage. We wrote skill tier on here. We have skill damage and skill haste. Now, if you have some God roll gloves that are China Light and then you have a God roll wyvern chest piece, you can swap it out. It's just, this is the way. Those two pieces can swap out right there. And if you really want to run the hardwire chest, well, you can put the China Light mask instead. However you guys want to run it, but these are the two pieces you want, China Light and wyvern. Now for the backpack, the final piece, and we're running the backpack because the backpack has a really good talent that I really like, right? So if we look, we have core attributes skill tier. We have the attributes of skill damage. Then we do have skill haste on here. But the backpack has a talent, right? The talent is short circuit. Decreases feedback loop cooldown from 20 seconds to 10 seconds. Yes, 10 seconds. Now, you pair that up with skilled, and that's how those seekers, bam, 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 you can keep spamming them. And when your seekers are hitting really hard and you have really good rolls, say once you get these skill damage rolls out, that's why I prefer. Currently, I just jumped on the hardware bandwagon. For a while, I was running the gold, and then because I felt like the backpack talent wasn't really working, and now that it's consistently working, I've been switching, and I really like the hardwire. And I think a lot of you guys might actually switch too. I'm not saying one is way better than the other, but this one's actually pretty good. Now for the seekers, look at my seekers. Look how much damage they do. Raw damage, we have 2.8 million damage. We have a cooldown of 29 seconds, which we're not going to worry about because we're going to get them back anyway. The blast radius is 2 meters, and the number of mines, 10 mines on there. Yes, we have 10 mines on there. So we pair that up with one of my favorite skills, the artillery. Now the artillery is going to do, look at that, 3.2 million damage, ammo 10. Now the way we have the mods on these, I forgot to show you on the clusters. We have damage, so you want to put damage, and then the one that gives you one extra seeker. And that's what I would recommend putting on there. You don't need the skill haste on here because remember with feedback loop and with skilled, you want that extra damage so that way it automatically proc. Now for artillery, we have on here we have damage. We do have one extra mortar round, and then on this one we have skill haste. Ideally, I wouldn't mind getting rid of skill haste if we can get another damage on here, but I'm not sure. I haven't got any other mods, but that's what I have right now, skill haste. But if one of you guys got a skill damage mod for this spot right here, let me know. So I would, if I could, go damage, but right now it's damage, skill haste, and one extra mortar. I know a couple of you guys are gonna ask, so the skill haste on this is 67%. So 67% is my skill haste on this build. So I think they're both really solid builds. Like I'm not saying gold builds aren't as good as hardwire builds. I just think that if you wanna have your skills back consistently, if you have skills that you want to be able to spam like Seekers, the hardwire build is going to be 100% the way to go. Now, you do get a couple talents that you can put on the backpack, right? I could run Shotgun All on a gold build. I can get a little bit more skill haste. Still really good builds. Honestly, if you want to run a gold build, I still run my gold build every now and then. But I've actually gotten some really good hardwire pieces that I've been able to min-max this, if you guys saw, and get almost all maxed out rolls. And now that I have the pieces, I'm able to throw this together. But I think this is probably going to be the skill build that I use going forward, for the fact that I can consistently get my Seekers back if I can get that skill to proc. Now, maybe on super hard difficulties like Legendary, it might be a little bit harder to proc skills, but you still should be able to. Maybe not as often as when you're doing heroic control points and heroic missions. But there's nothing more satisfying than seeing your Seekers come back over and over and over again. And I hope that the backpack's talents continue to work successfully and they don't have a hiccup like they did where they weren't currently working. But now they're good to go, and I'm enjoying them. I'm enjoying at least hardwire right now with the backpack talents actually working really good. And I think a lot of you guys should give this build a chance. If you've been only running the gold build, if you've been running my skill gold build, we'll try this one out, and I'm sure you guys will 100% enjoy it. Don't forget, if you guys enjoy these types of videos, always leave a thumbs up. Always helps out the channel. Well, I think it helps out the channel. No one ever knows. But yeah, leave a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next Division 2 video. Nothing but Skills is out.